Well, hello, ladies and weebs. Howdy, y'all. What's up? What's up? As you can see, we're doing a grammar lesson tonight. That's why I have my "I'm a cool teacher" shirt and beanie on. You know, to identify with the kids and all that. It's been a long time since I've done a grammar lesson. It's been a while. Okay. I need to put up this. Boom! Woo! Japanese verb conjugation and overview part dos. Name every conjugation. Oh my god, that's such a weeb thing to do. That's such a weeb thing to ask. Oh, you like verbs, you. Well, why don't you name every conjugation? All right, here we go. Welcome. Verb conjugations. Okay, verb conjugations. Here's what we're talking about today. We're talking about potential form. So our objectives cover potential form and what it entails. Talk about two ways of expressing potential. Koto ga dekiru and verb conjugation. We're going to talk about particle usage. What particles do you use for this? Okay? And then scenarios to use potential form, scenarios to not use potential form, and we're going to talk about intransitive verbs that kind of have potential using built-in things to talk about. I told y'all to watch part 1 on the YouTube and in the Discord. And so hopefully you did, especially if you are not familiar with godan, ichidan, and irregular verbs and how they conjugate, because I'm going to be talking about that. Okay. Did you watch the video? Also, ask any questions if you have them. Feel free to ask questions. This is going to be a conversation. Minakata, Taro-san. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, what is potential in grammar? So, potential in grammar, specifically in Japanese, actually, it refers to the skill or ability to do something, the situational allowance to do it, not just like can you, but like can you physically do it, but like are you allowed to do it is an important component of this, as well as the ability of something like drivability. Also, yes, I did Google if drivability has an E here. Turns out, no one really knows. It's either way. There was one long article about like the difference between it, but I was like, I ain't got time for this. All right. In English, can versus may, it's a pretty hot topic, you know, for people who want to make your life more inconvenient than it has to be, you know. I think we've all had a teacher where you're like, hey, can I go to the bathroom? I don't know, can you? I don't know, can you have this pencil? But Japanese generally doesn't use potential form to ask for permission. It can be used in other situations to ask for stuff, but we're not going to but it's not, it doesn't, not like permission in that sense, in that scenario. Okay, now we're going to talk about hey, Fuyo, welcome. We're just talking about potential form in grammar, Japanese grammar. And there's two ways of expressing this. You can do a base 3 plus koto ga dekiru. Base 3 just means the infinitive version, which the infinitive version is the plain form. So like kao, iku, omo, those type of words, and then just slap on koto ga dekiru, and the verb conjugation form of it. So let's first talk about the scrub way, easy way of doing this. So you take any sentence you want in the infinitive form, and you slap koto ga dekiru on it. That's it. It's that simple. Nihon ni iku koto ga dekiru, right? I can go to Japan. It's that simple. Now, technically, what you're doing here, does that not sound awkward? It's not necessarily. Well, we're going to talk about how it's shortened and things like that, and because it's a bit clunky to say. Yes, it's a bit clunky to say. Turning a verb into a noun, then back into a verb. Yeah, well, see, this is kind of what you're doing. You're turning your original statement into a verbal or a verbal phrase. So you're saying, I can do the thing of going to Japan, right? The thing that is the going to Japan thing, I can do, right? And it's kind of a more like formal, but it's generally like there's people who think I was reading who were saying, oh, maybe there's some difference between koto ga dekiru versus like the other way of conjugating, but there's really not. It's not any different. One is perhaps a little more formal. This one is perhaps a little bit more formal than the other way, but it's not different meaning. More formal technical but it seems like it's preferred for some verbs. Like I can swim versus I'm able to swim. Essentially say, yeah, exactly. When you're using this, all of the conjugations that you do, they affect the dekiru part of it, not the verbal part of it. So this just remains in its infinitive form the entire time. And then you just mess with this thing, right? Just mess with this thing. As I mean, I guess if you wanted to try to be overly polite, you could mess with it. But yeah. Another thing you can't say in polite form, Duolingo. There's no polite way to say that. Okay, here's now how the pros do it. This is the probably more common way. So instead of like just keeping it in the infinitive and adding koto ga dekiru on it, you actually conjugate the verb type. So godon verbs, you do the base 4. Base 4 means that you're changing the last sound from an u to an e sound. And then you add ru, and that's it. So ao, which is a godon verb, becomes aeru. Pretty straightforward. Ichidan verbs, base 1 or 2, right? Base 1 and 2 are the same thing for Ichidan verbs, so it doesn't really make a difference, but you add rareru on it. You add rareru thing. Ikimasu koto ga would be wrong is what you're saying, right? Yeah. It's not dictionary form. So like if you wanted to try to like be facetiously polite, I guess, you could add all these things. You could actually add the honorific rareru, raremasu. You could do all sorts of things for, I don't know, it may be comedic effect or something. They're like, oh, this is gaijins being overly whatever, But but I would say it's not really correct. Yeah. So Ichidan verbs, base 1 or 2, and then rareru. So taberu, which is an Ichidan verb, you drop the ru entirely, because that's what you do for base 1 and 2. And then you add rareru on the end of it. So taberareru. Okay? And then there's our friendly irregular verbs, which are kuru, which becomes korareru, and then suru, which changes entirely to dekiru. And that's why it is irregular. It's literally not even like the same word anymore. I have a question. Are these auxiliary verbs? Because you can conjugate the endings, right? Yeah. You still can. Yeah. You can still conjugate the endings. In fact, if you wanted to do a potential and then mix it with like passive, then voice, then you can. So you can mix these. So yeah, you can do yomemasu, yomenekata, yomemasen deshita, right? Those all work. Yeah, those all work. Let's see. Then, okay, yeah, so this is what I talked about before. Experience Japan, do some research. Koto ga dekiru and rareru have virtually no difference. Then some may consider the former to be a bit more formal. And then final bullet point, since the Ichidan conjugation is the same as passive voice, right? It's still rareru, whether in passive voice, it's the same conjugation. It's pretty common to drop the ra. This is called ra nuki kotoba. And so instead of taberareru, you would say tabereru or koreru instead of korareru. to differentiate between passive voice and potential because it can get a little bit confusing. It's still something that's like, it's one of those things that maybe technically isn't correct, but like maybe some old grammar books would not consider it correct, but it is like, it is. It's used. Hey, Tamaki-san, konnichiwa. 今日ね、日本語の文法について話してる。結構、楽しいね。もし私がなんか間違ってることを言ったら、ぜひ知らせてください。So, questions, we all good so far? 食べられたくなかった？食べられたくなかった？ I don't know when you would say that. I didn't want to be able to eat. 食べられたくなかった。なんか、どの状態そういうこと言うのかな？食べられたくなかった。I didn't want to be able to eat, but I did. I was able to. 残念ながら食べられる。食べられた。食べれた。食べれた。Would be valid grammar at least? Yeah, it would be valid grammar, but yeah. Sounds like it kicks into the want to be eaten mode. Yeah, because it could be confused with passive voice, which is why instead of taberareru, lots of people say tabereru instead, because it's, it's different than passive voice. Okay, particles. So there's a bit of nuance here, so tread carefully or just embrace being a gaijin and you'll probably be okay, right? You'll probably be fine. People will forgive you. Yeah. 外人だからなんか悪い文法、間違ってる文法を許してくれるね、皆さんは。日本人は。So, you can use either ga or o. Technically, ga is what will appear in most textbooks as opposed to o. But in practice, people do use o, direct particles, for potential form. Particularly in certain cases in which if you're using the koto ga dekiru, in order to avoid having two gas so close together, they might use o instead for the first verbal section of the sentence construction, because that will distinguish it from the second part. Is Wararu considered stiff? I don't think it's necessarily considered stiff, but it is considered maybe a little confusing. Through context, people will get what you're talking about probably, especially considering like the other parts of the sentence construction for a passive voice is going to be different than if you are speaking about what you can potentially do. So if it's already obvious that you're talking about like the potential, then it's going to be like people will get it for sure. Like no one's going to be like, whoa, but it's a little more like Nihonjin poi. It's a little more Japanese like a Japanese person would probably say it in normal like conversation. Okay, so O is generally used with the koto ga dekiru structure to differentiate it. However, if you're just using dekiru, you like always use ga, like always. Nani ga dekiru is basically always true, except maybe sometimes. Except if you are talking in the negation form, then you can change it to wa. If you're using it as a negation, and if you're following the other idea of wa, right? You're placing emphasis on the subject, and as if it's an exception to other things that might be there, right? Is odekiru valid in some cases where osuru would be? Generally not. From the research that I've done is that generally no. Osuru, like you would probably change it to ga dekiru. And it's typically not valid, is from what I have studied in preparation for this. Also, phrases are often shortened, right? Because as we talked about before, this whole koto ga dekiru, like Jazzy brought up, it's a little like awkward to say, right? So you can just omit all of this hanasu koto ga or hanasu koto. You can get rid of all that and just say nihongo ga dekiru. Because if you're talking about Nihongo, as in the language, it's obvious that you're talking about speaking it or being capable of doing it. If you wanted to differentiate that you can speak it, but you can't read it or something, then you would need to clarify that probably, or you'd want to clarify that. But yeah, a lot of things in Japanese get omitted, and this is no exception to that. And if there aren't any objects involved, then normal procedure, right? Oh, I can't go to school. Like, yeah, that sort of thing. So, use cases. Here is when you want to use potential form. So, when you're talking about a skill or an ability that you have, like Nihongo ga hanaseru, like I can speak Japanese, then that is expressing a skill, right, that you've done. Right? If you're expressing a skill that you have or an ability to do something, like kono nazo o tokeru, which tokeru, this means to solve a mystery. So if you're wanting to say that like you can solve a mystery, which is not necessarily a skill that you learn, it's more of like an ability to do something, then you can use potential form. Now, if you're also talking about a situational ability to do something or an allowance, for example, kono toshokan de biru ga nomeru, meaning like, hey, you can drink beer in this library. That means that it's possible in a given situation, right? Like they let you drink beer here, which this would be a really fun place to go and study, hang out, a library where you can drink beer. So that's not expressing necessarily like the physical ability to do something, right? Or capability to do something. It's talking about, does the situational context permit it, right? So that's different than the previous things that the skill or ability bullet point. And then the third one is if you're talking about a ability or able or ibble type of thing. Oh yeah, there we go. Ano kuruma wa unten dekiru. Right? Can be translated as I can drive that car. However, it's kind of talking about like the car's drivability as well, right? That car is drivable would be another way of talking about. You could translate it that way potentially. And then wa is used instead of o or ga because it implies that the thing in question has a trait that other things do not, right? So it's like that car, I can drive that car, right? Maybe you're in a junkyard, right? Not used to show I can drive that car instead of others. Exactly. Yeah. So wa is used to be like, well, I can drive that car, right? Ano kuruma wa unten dekiru. Like if you're in a kono toshokan de wa. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the correction, Tamaki-san. Oh shit. Yeah, you're right. I forgot the wa in there. But yeah, you're correct. Arigatou gozaimasu, Tamaki-san. Yeah. Kono toshokan de wa biru ga nomeru. Arigatou gozaimasu. That is true. De wa would be much better. Would be more correct. Yeah. Fusolashku kikoemasu. Yeah. So, right. So you're saying I can drive that car. Maybe you're in a junkyard and there's lots of cars that are like undrivable, but you're like, well, that one I could drive. I could drive that one, right? Or that car is drivable. Like that one is drivable, but maybe not the other one. I'm just researching and sharing what I know, So here's some times not to use potential. So English expressions say like anyone can make mistakes, which use a potential form of like can. Generally don't translate to Japanese directly, right? Because they refer to the possibility to make a mistake rather than the ability to make a mistake. Like, you are able to make a mistake as opposed to like, you could potentially make a mistake, right? If you say like, oh, anyone can make a mistake, you're kind of referring more to like, this could potentially happen. Like anyone can mess up, right? Don't use the potential for potentially. Yeah. Well, no possibility. Right? It's you know. Whereas this is more directly related to like ability, as in like, can you make a mistake, right? Do you have it within your power to make a mistake? So our usage in English of can is just a little bit wider. It's a little bit more of an umbrella. Kanose. Yeah, it's a little bit more of an umbrella, wide umbrella than Japanese. Japanese can or potential form is a little more focused than the way that we use can. Also, as we mentioned before, Japanese potential shouldn't use it to ask for permission, like, can I borrow a pencil? Enpitsu o karirareru. It's a enpitsu o karite mo ii, right? So like, am I allowed to borrow this? May I borrow it? Enpitsu o karite mo ii, right? Or you could say, kashite kureo, enpitsu. You know, whatever you need. Give me that pencil. 誰でも間違えることができる? 違う? So in this case, you would probably say 誰でも間違えることがある. In this case, there are instances, or there are, so you'd use ある instead of できる to translate the meaning of this. Yeah. Instead of, it doesn't quite transfer over in the same way that we think of it. So like there are times when people make mistakes, right? So you can use potential also to make requests, but the nuance is different than English because it refers to the ability to fulfill a request, right? So if you say like, can you come over tomorrow? You're asking like, do you have the availability? Does the situation permit you to, or perhaps you have the skill or ability to do that thing? Rather than like we use it, like if you say, hey, can you come over tomorrow? You're meaning like, yeah, like can you please do it? Right? That's not how it translates over into Japanese. Is the kiru necessarily voluntary? Yeah, to an extent, yeah, like, yeah. In this sense, yeah. So like there has to be some kind of volition to it. And so if you're asking for a favor, you'd want to use the base te plus kuraru. Like, can you come over tomorrow as a favor? Not like, are you going to be available tomorrow to come over? That's the difference there. But we kind of in English overlap those two all the time. Okay, intransitive verbs. So let's talk about them. So transitive verbs, in case you're unaware, transfer an action from a subject to an object, right? Now, some form and intransitive verbs don't. They do not have to, right? Like I ran, right? Is not transitive. You're not transferring the action of running onto an object. You're just describing what you are doing. And so a lot of verbs have potential built into their intransitive forms. So with miru, right, versus mieru, if you're saying that it like to see, like miru, you can to see it, or if you're saying something is mieru, that means more like it's visible, right? It's able to be seen. It's the ability to be seen, which, as we talked about before, fits under this able part, right? Or kiku becomes kikoeru, which is audible, right? So these kind of have potential built into them. So if you're going to say, like, if you're going to use something like mirareru, just understand that it's like a different meaning, right? So like if you're saying ashita made ni mirareru, like you're saying like, or mirareru, you're saying like, can you look at it by tomorrow? You're asking for their ability to do that. Like, do you have the time? Are you going to be able to accomplish this type of thing? Rather than saying like, is it able to be seen, right? English transitive and intransitive is really complicated. And like lay and lie and lied, people get like mixed up with that all the time because it's hard. It is hard. That's all I got to say. 以上です。 Period. Remember hating grammar classes in elementary school because they were too difficult? The show? Yeah, that's so hard. Yeah, grammar is really hard. Like, 英語でも日本語でもタガロ語でも難しいね。It's hard no matter what language you're talking about. It's tough. It's tough. And English, I mean, the irregular verbs of English is like super hard. Like there's so many irregular verbs. Like a lot more than Japanese, I think. Is shiru not transitive? このことを知る? 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 Like, don't you have to say このことが知る? 知ってる? このことが知ってる? I mean, I think you can say, I think grammatically it's fine, yeah. 彼の電話番号を知ってます. Yeah. I think you can use, right? でしょ? 玉木さん? 何々を知るっていう文法は正しいでしょ? Can you not say 英語わかる? Yeah. You would generally, I think, basically always say ga with instead of o, at least. Although I think you can still say wa instead of ga if you're trying to say like, well, I know English, but not other stuff. お知る大丈夫? Yeah. That's nice. That's what I thought. Yeah. So like if you're saying まあ英語は分かってるけどまあスペイン語は全然知らん type of thing. Wakaru is be understandable is glitched out for a long time. Yeah. And I think that dekiru actually has kind of similar rules, which is why you generally use the ga for dekiru as well. Rikai uses o. Yeah, for sure. Rikai suru definitely uses o. Yeah. For sure. All right. Well, I am going to be posting this up on the YouTube channel in case you want to review it. And on the YouTube channel, when I post it, I'll also include a link to the slideshow. So if you want to have access to the slides, you certainly may. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Right, teacher says dekiru is an intransitive verb. Yeah. Dekteru? Yeah. Yeah, like, you could say dekta, like, I did it. Yosh, dekta. Yeah. Dekteru. Okay, picture this. Picture this. You're trying to play a game, right? Like you're losing, maybe. But you know you can do it. You can say dekiru, and I think dekiru would probably still be more natural. Like someone's like, oh, you sucks. You can't do it, right? And then you're trying to reply and you're like, dekiru yo. Like, I can do it. And then like, as you're doing it, you can be like, dekiru yo. Like, oh, or I'm able to do it. I'm being able to do it. Yeah, I'm being able to do it. Yeah. It's indicative when it means something is made of something. Oh, yeah. Like they were able to make it out of this type of thing. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Yeah, I've seen that as well. If you're describing how they're able to do something, like how are they doing that, then you can use dekteru for that if you're answering that question. Hardly see dekteru and might just not notice it. Yeah. I think it's not necessary. I think that's probably the most common usage is like the one that Tato brought up. But it can appear in other situations, but it's most common with, I think, with what Tato said. Dekiru o kanji de kaku koto wa hotondo arimasen. Yeah. 普通になんかひらがなって見えるね。Usually see it. Yeah, hiragana ga mieru. Like usually see it in hiragana. You know, my brain just shut off for a second. But yeah, you generally see it in hiragana. Yeah. For sure. I think I've seen it in a couple of like games. I've seen it in a couple of video games when like the news was talking or something. Like in Persona 4, other than those like situations, it's generally just Written in hiragana, yeah. Well, that's all I've got for you, folks. But we're gonna do some Duolingo. Oh, sorry. Hey! Moraeru! Instead of morao, moraeru. Potential form. Which sounds a lot like it's asking for a request. 科学 is science. Chemistry specifically.
科学
I thought science was just 科学. Is 科学 specifically chemistry? Oh, it's a different ka. This is the ka. This was the shinka no ka. Shinkaro no ka. Which is theory of evolution. Yeah. That's the shinka no ka. Yeah. Evolution ka. Which is biology. What the piss? Get your shit together. 科学というとどちらを指してるのはわからないので、英語の中で科学のことを言いたいときは化学ということがあります。Really? 化学化けはその漢字の他の読み方でしょ？他の読み方でしょ？化け like 化け物？ Okay. So 化学 That is so useful. Thank you so much. Yeah. なんか書くとまあ書くときは普通に科学ってもまあ書いてもいいけど、なんか喋るときは化学って言ったらなんか混乱させないように。That's so thank you so much. 本当にありがとうございます。That's so useful to know. So when you're talking, you can use 化学 to talk about chemistry instead of 科学 because it's confusing with science. Man, last night I watched Starship Troopers. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie. The movie's pretty good. Killing bugs and, you know, there's like bugs, there's boobs, there's like, there's other stuff. So we can move over. 移動する? It's to move. It can also be to teleport too. Over to is a parto. Sure. ことができる? Right there from a video. Oh, there was. Oh, ことができます. 移動することができます. Right? Oh, shit! I missed it. Hey. Let's take two. Take two. Ready? Marker. All right. ここからキリのパートに移動することができます. Hey, check it out. Chat. So if you look here, we have the 移動する and then ことができます, right? So you just keep the する in its infinitive form and you just throw on the ことができます right there. There you go. And as Tamaki-san said, the できます is written in hiragana rather than kanji. All right, break. How was that? It's a good ass take now, wasn't it? All right, let's go get my money. Oh, I also forgot that I can bet on ladies. Right? There it is. The cat fight will tanoshimasu. Tanoshimasu. Hey, tanoshimasu. Tanoshimu? Tanoshimeru. Tanoshimasu. Potential fun. You can enjoy cat fighting. Yeah! Do damage to this! Look at my techniques! Yeah! Whoa! You got her. 俺にできることがまだ何があるかもしれない。Oh, 俺にできること。Is there anything that I can do? Right? Hey, this is another good way of is there anything for me to do? Like, right? So another instance of dekiru being used with koto. And in this case, he's saying, is there anything like the ni particle is like a direction particle. So it's directing it like kind of towards him, right? Like as for me, or referencing me, is there anything for me to do? 見つかったら戦いは避けられない. So in this case, this is an instance of the potential form being used of, but they haven't dropped the rareru, right? So it looks like passive, but it's not. He's saying that if I am found, I cannot avoid a fight. 戦いは避けられない. Can't avoid a fight. Were you saying they dropped the ra and just like mireru? Yeah, they do that a lot of times, but they also don't sometimes. Like, it's something that they do sometimes to avoid that confusion, but not always. It's one of those things that's becoming more common, but it's not like standard. But a lot of times they do. It's called ra nuki kotoba, or ra nuki. Is to jizz away the ra. Some words you can't because it ends up being ambiguous. Yeah, it might mix up with another word too, yeah. Never formally learned potential, just picked it from other people using it. Yeah, and it's something that I think is really important. Just because it can easily be confused with passive, as well as like there's a lot of little nuances to it. But yeah, you're right, Moobs. There's some words that you really don't drop the raw. Okay, now we finish them off with this. Boom. Oh. Chari no chikara. Chari no chikara. Oh shit. Chariを拾って、そしてぶつかってやる。お、行こう。お、ああ。Boom. Chuddy? Chuddy was nasal. Oh, fudge. Oh, 30 seconds? Chuddy? Oh, there's another Chuddy. Oh, damn it. What? Damn. It really sucks that some of these guys can block. Give me this. Okay, here we go. How dare they defend themselves? Yeah, I know. Right? God damn it. We're good. Hey, I'm gonna take this umbrella with me. Oh, actually. There we go. Slow and steady wins the race. Slow and chuddy. 2分で来い. Come in 2 minutes. That's worked for me so far in my life. Okay. Nice. Like I read a couple of the. Oh. Oh shit. Yeah, I'm gonna be doing actually lessons on that. I was thinking my next couple of lessons. I was actually gonna do passive voice and causative form in this entire lesson, but then for today's lesson. But then I was like, it's way too big. Like I should, and then I would have more videos anyway. I was like, I should separate these into different things. Those are my next one. I was going to do passive voice. And then the following one, I was going to do causative form, the saseru and stuff. I'm definitely planning on doing that. I had fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. This was a quality stream. It sure was. Damn, 5 hours. of streaming goodness. 5 hours. And I will see you for the next one. じゃあ、休みありがとうあげさん Yeah, see you later, everyone. Bye.